Most people are taught that manifestation is about attraction, that if you think about something long enough, repeat affirmations, and visualize your desires in enough detail, eventually the universe will bring them to you. But if you've ever tried this approach and felt like nothing changed, you're not alone. The reason manifestation doesn't seem to work for so many people is because the model itself is incomplete. It assumes you need to pull something into your current experience, that you need to attract something outside of yourself and bring it into the timeline you're already in. But that very idea creates a subtle tension, a vibration of lack, a sense of waiting. It reinforces the idea that what you want is separate from you. What if the problem isn't your thoughts, your affirmations, or your desire? What if the problem is the paradigm itself? This is where the traditional manifestation model begins to break down, because it positions your desire as something you must magnetize through repetition and positivity. And if nothing happens, you blame yourself. You think you weren't consistent enough, or high vibe enough, or that your subconscious blocks are too strong. But the truth is, you're not supposed to attract what you want. You're supposed to align with it. Alignment is not about effort. It's not about trying harder. It's about frequency. You don't bring a manifestation to you through force. You become a match for it through resonance. Instead of trying to pull something toward you, you stabilize into the internal state that mirrors the reality you want to live in. This changes everything. Because now you stop trying to make something happen. You stop viewing your manifestation as something that has to cross space and time to get to you. You realize it already exists, and your job is to create the conditions that allow it to meet you. Here's what this means practically. When manifestation isn't working, it usually means you're focused on the outcome instead of the signal. You're watching the clock, waiting for results. You're measuring whether it's working based on external changes. But the external world is a reflection. The real work is happening internally. And this is where most people misunderstand alignment. They confuse it with mood, with feeling positive all the time. But alignment isn't emotional high, it's coherence, it's internal congruence. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and decisions point in the same direction, creating a stable, energetic signature that the universe can actually respond to. You can repeat affirmations for hours, but if you're still operating from a state of lack, fear, or urgency, the signal remains mixed. And a mixed signal creates a delayed or distorted reflection. This is not punishment, it's physics. That's why this isn't about what you say you want. It's about the frequency you're broadcasting beneath the surface. And that frequency doesn't shift because you think harder. It shifts when you begin to align your internal state with clarity, intention, and stillness, not striving. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt or insecurity. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. But it does mean that your dominant state begins to stabilize around the version of life you want to experience. Not through constant hustle, but through attunement. So if manifestation hasn't been working for you, stop asking, what else do I need to do to get this thing? And start asking, what am I aligning with right now? What is my energy telling the field? Because that's the real signal. That's the message reality responds to. And once you shift from trying to attract results to stabilizing your frequency, the entire game changes. Not because you found the perfect method, but because you finally stopped resisting the truth. You don't manifest through attraction. You manifest through alignment. And alignment is always available the moment you stop chasing and start tuning in. What if your desire isn't something to bring into existence, but something that already exists in a version of reality you haven't tuned into yet? You're not creating outcomes from nothing. You're not generating your dreams through force of will. You're navigating realities. The quantum field, the multidimensional fabric of possibility, doesn't operate on effort. It operates on resonance, and within that field, every version of reality already exists. Infinite outcomes, infinite timelines, each one fully formed, fully alive, and fully accessible. Not later, now. Right now, there's a version of you who's already living the reality you want. Not metaphorically, literally. That version exists in a parallel timeline where the desire you're reaching for isn't a hope or a goal or a vision board affirmation. It's just normal life. It's routine. It's already integrated. You've probably felt glimpses of that timeline when you're lost in a moment of daydream, or you get a sudden surge of emotion imagining something that hasn't happened yet. That flicker of joy, that undeniable resonance, that's not fantasy. That's a signal. A vibrational thread that's pulling you toward a version of reality where that experience is already real. And the longer you treat that glimpse as imagination, the longer it stays out of reach. This is why desire isn't random. It's not just preference or preference dressed up as ambition. Desire is a form of remembering, a kind of quantum memory. When you long for something deeply and consistently, it's often because some version of you is already experiencing it. And that version is trying to make contact. This changes everything. Because now you stop asking, how do I make this happen? And start asking, what part of me already knows this reality? You stop pushing for things to arrive and start attuning yourself to the version of life that already holds them. It's not about creating, it's about converging. To understand this, you have to shift out of linear thinking. Most people believe that they're at point A and their desire is at point B, and they need to do something to get from one to the other. But in the quantum model, point B already exists. The only question is, are you the version of yourself who matches it? And if not, the solution isn't to try harder. The solution is to stop anchoring yourself in the timeline where it remains missing. You anchor timelines through repetition, not just of action, but of belief, emotion, and identity. When you repeatedly think from the same assumptions, react from the same wounds, and expect the same limitations, you reinforce the version of reality that holds those limits in place. But when you allow yourself to drop those loops, even for a moment, you loosen your grip on the current timeline. You open up space for the quantum field to reorient around a different version of you, one that's already aligned with the life you've been trying to build. And this doesn't have to be dramatic. Often it starts in small and quiet ways. You make a new choice. You stop tolerating something. You act on an impulse that feels unexplainably right. You say no to something that used to define you. These are micro shifts, but they send a loud signal. They tell the field, I'm no longer reinforcing the version of reality where my desire is missing. This is where subtlety becomes power. Because the moment you begin tuning into a new timeline, the quantum field begins reshaping your external experience to match it. You might not see results immediately, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Timelines are vibrational structures. They shift subtly at first, through nudges, conversations, emotions, synchronicities. But once stabilized, they manifest physically. The mistake most people make is they try to collapse timelines without shifting frequency. They try to think their way into a new reality while emotionally anchoring themselves to the old one. They visualize abundance while feeling desperate. They affirm love while vibrating with rejection, and then they wonder why nothing changes. This is not a judgment, it's just awareness. The field doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. And if you're still emotionally anchored to a version of reality where your manifestation is missing, it can't stabilize into form. So how do you move from intellectual desire to quantum resonance? You begin by accepting that the reality you want isn't far away. It's here, now. And every moment you tune into it, through emotional alignment, mental clarity, and energetic coherence, you get closer. This is why imagination is so powerful, because when you imagine vividly and feel deeply, you're not faking it until you make it. You're entering a vibrational state that matches a real version of life, one that already exists whether you've experienced it yet or not. That version of life is trying to find you. And when you allow yourself to feel it without pushing it away, without downgrading it to fantasy or labeling it as unrealistic, you strengthen the bridge between timelines. You shorten the distance between longing and embodiment. You can begin doing this now, right now. Close your eyes, even just for a few seconds, and tune into the energy of a life where your desire is normal, not a fantasy, just your baseline. How does it feel? What feels different in your body? What feels more relaxed, more alive, more certain? Hold that frequency. Let it color your choices. Let it affect how you move. That version of life will begin pulling you toward it, the more you allow it to feel real. And that's what makes this approach different from traditional manifestation. You're not waiting for results to give you permission to believe. You're believing in the truth of what already exists and letting that belief lead you there. The quantum field isn't testing you, it's reflecting you. So the moment you shift from chasing to choosing, from hoping to attuning, the timeline begins to reconfigure. And what once felt far away becomes familiar. Because it was never missing, it was just vibrating in a different layer of reality. And now it's calling you in. Stay with it. You're getting closer. If everything you desire already exists, and manifestation is really a matter of shifting timelines, the natural next question becomes, how do you actually do it? How do you step out of the version of reality where your desire is missing and into the one where it already exists? This isn't a matter of force or trying to trick the universe. It's about changing your state of being so completely that your outer world has no choice but to reflect that shift. And the truth is, this process is both more subtle and more powerful than most people realize. You begin by getting clear on what the new reality feels like, not just the outer details, but the inner texture. What emotions are normal there? What state of being is natural in that timeline? Is there a sense of calm? A feeling of stability? Joy? Power? What version of you lives that life? Not just what they have, but how they operate. Clarity begins the process because the quantum field responds to signal, not just thought. You can't shift into a reality you're vague about. If you want something new, you have to start tuning to the frequency of what it feels like, not as a hope, but as a remembered truth. As that clarity builds, the next layer reveals itself. You begin to notice what keeps you anchored to the timeline you're trying to leave. The habits, the thought patterns, the emotional loops. You might realize that you're trying to embody abundance while still reacting to life through scarcity, or affirming love while still living from the expectation of loss. This awareness is powerful, not because it fixes anything immediately, but because it shines light on where your energy is still pointed backwards. When you're ready to shift, you stop negotiating with the old version of yourself. You stop justifying habits that keep you misaligned. You don't need to judge them, but you do need to become honest about what keeps reinforcing the frequency of the unwanted timeline. You don't shift realities by dragging the old one with you. You shift by releasing what doesn't belong to the new one. Then comes the step that can't be skipped, feeling as if the new reality is already true. You can't think your way into a timeline. You have to feel your way into it. Emotion is the bridge. When you generate the feeling of already living that life, even if just for a moment, you create resonance. You begin vibrating in harmony with what already exists, not as something to chase, but as something that's real right now. This isn't delusion. This isn't pretending. This is the most grounded step you can take, because it teaches your nervous system a new baseline. It tells your subconscious, this is safe, this is familiar, this is who we are now. And the more often you access that state, the more stable the new timeline becomes. You stop looking for proof because the internal evidence is enough. You're no longer testing the field, you're broadcasting your truth. From that place, your actions change. Not because you're forcing them to, but because certain behaviors no longer feel available. You naturally start acting in ways that match the new vibration. You say no to what used to pull you out of alignment. You make small decisions that feel more congruent. You stop tolerating patterns that don't reflect who you're becoming. The shift becomes behavioral, not just energetic. And this is where momentum builds. Reality responds not to the occasional moment of high vibration, but to sustained coherence. So when you find that emotional anchor, when you start to live, speak, and choose from that place, you start to notice subtle shifts. A new conversation, a new opportunity, a flicker of synchronicity. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Your new signal is being received. You'll know you're in motion when your environment starts to feel different, even if nothing has changed. When familiar triggers don't hold the same charge. When your self-talk becomes less about hope and more about knowing. When the gap between you and the desired reality starts to dissolve. Not because everything has arrived, but because it no longer feels separate. This is also where the discipline comes in, because most people sabotage the shift too early. They look around and think, it's not working yet, and immediately return to their old emotional set point. But timelines don't shift through force, they shift through consistency. The longer you can hold the vibration of the new reality without needing proof, the more solid it becomes. At a certain point, you no longer need to convince yourself. You're not trying to become the version of you who lives that reality. You've already accepted that you are. You don't question the timeline anymore. You live from it. You expect it. You let go of urgency. You begin to treat the desire not as something magical or rare, but as ordinary, natural, normal. And that's when the shift locks in. Because now your emotional, energetic, and behavioral reality all match. There's no internal conflict, no contradiction. You're living from the frequency, not just reaching for it. And when that happens, reality reorganizes to match. Not because you made it happen, but because you became the version of you who lives where it's already true. This is not about perfection. You'll have moments where doubt creeps in. That's fine. Let it pass. Return to alignment. You don't need to hold the frequency without interruption. You just need to return to it more often than you leave it. Every time you choose the new state over the old one, you reinforce the shift. Reality isn't resisting you, it's responding to you. And every time you stabilize the vibration of your chosen timeline, you collapse the distance between thought and form. So shift quietly, shift with devotion, shift not to escape what is, but to embody what's already waiting. It's here. Now live like it. If you've made it this far, it means something inside of you already knows the truth. The life you've been chasing isn't far away. It's already real. And the version of you who lives it, they've been waiting for you to catch up. You don't have to keep trying so hard to attract what you want. You don't have to beg the universe for signs or convince yourself that you're worthy. Because you are. You always were. And the moment you start living like it, reality will begin responding in ways you can't unsee. This is the invitation, not to manifest harder, but to finally stop pretending you're separate from the life that's been calling you, to stop waiting, to stop doubting, to stop trading your energy for evidence. The universe doesn't speak in tests, it speaks in mirrors. You've felt the pull, you've seen the signs, and whether you realized it or not, those moments weren't random. They were alignment, little glimpses of what's already yours, if you're willing to claim it. And yes, it might feel like a leap, but you're not starting from zero. You've already been shifting in quiet ways. Every moment you questioned the path you were on, every time you daydreamed about more, every time you chose honesty over habit, those were not small things. Those were votes for a new timeline. Right now, there is an opportunity, one that only exists for those who are willing to act before they see the result. To move before everything makes sense. To trust that the next version of life is already forming beneath their feet. Not because they earned it, but because they matched it. If that's you, if you can feel that truth rising, then let this be the moment you say yes. Not in theory, not someday, now. Say yes by taking a single step today that aligns with the version of life you've been asking for. Speak differently, move differently, choose differently, even in the smallest way. Because when you take action from the new timeline, you reinforce it. You collapse the space between energy and evidence. You stop hoping, and you begin knowing. This is what most people won't do. They'll wait for proof. They'll stay in comfort. They'll circle the idea of change without ever stepping into it. But not you. You're still here. You felt this message land. That's not a coincidence. It's a confirmation. So don't let it pass you by. You're part of a rare group, the ones willing to live from alignment instead of fear. The ones willing to shift realities instead of settling for the one they were handed. And that group moves differently. That group doesn't wait for the perfect moment. They create it. So start now. No more hesitation. Name the reality you're shifting into. Say it out loud. Claim it in the comments. Speak it into the field. Let the quantum respond. Because the shift isn't waiting on life. Life is waiting on you, and you're ready right now.